He stayed with her. He built a life that looked steady, predictable, structured. From the outside, it made sense. She was the choice that aligned with his obligations, the one his family approved, the one who did not awaken the chaos he once felt with you. But no matter how deeply he committed to that life, something inside him never fully left you, because the soul does not follow logic. It does not obey rules. It moves according to resonance, not reason. And your soul had once spoken to his in a language neither of you could explain. Only feel. This is why he still thinks of you when the house is quiet, why he sometimes wakes up from dreams he cannot tell her about, why he finds pieces of you in strangers, in music, in random memories that rush in when he least expects. He is still with her, but something in him is still with you. If you have ever felt that, if your heart suddenly aches without a reason, or if you feel his energy brush up against yours in a moment of stillness, you are not imagining it. Carl Jung once said that what the soul cannot release, the mind returns to again and again. That is what is happening now. He built a life where your name is never spoken, but your presence was never erased. You were the fire, the mirror, the wild truth, the one who saw him not just as a man, but as a soul. That is rare and terrifying, because when you see someone that deeply, they either rise to meet that reflection or run from it. Ran not because you were not enough, but because you saw too much, because your love demanded growth, truth, confrontation. It was not convenient, it was not safe, but it was real, and real love leaves a mark on the soul. So even now, even with her, something in him still feels you, still reacts to the thought of you, still aches for something he cannot name. That is why he lingers on your social media, why he sometimes reaches out under innocent pretenses, why he asks about things from the past like they are just curiosities, when in truth, they are anchors, because your connection was not based on circumstance. It was soul to soul, and those ties do not dissolve just because papers are signed or rings are worn. He may sleep beside her, but part of him wakes up next to the memory of who he was with you, and that part, the unspoken part, is still alive. But here is the truth you are learning now. Just because a man's soul is tied to you does not mean he is ready to live at the level of that connection. Sometimes the tie remains because there was no closure, because the love was not honored fully, because the energy exchange was left open like a wound, and it is not your job to close it for him. You are healing. You are reclaiming yourself. You are no longer reaching for crumbs of energy disguised as hope. You have stopped romanticizing silence as depth. You have stopped confusing his absence for mystery. You know now that the soul might call out, but it is the actions that reveal the truth. He may love you deeply in the quiet of his mind, but what he does with that love tells you everything. He stayed with her. That is his choice. That is his story. But your story is different. No, you are not the woman waiting for him to finally wake up. You are the woman who already has earned. That awakening comes with grief, with truth, with the brutal realization that someone can feel your soul and still not choose your life. He may come back again, or maybe he will not, but the energetic thread between you is real, and you are allowed to acknowledge that without needing to act on it. You are allowed to feel it without opening the door again, because the woman you have become knows this. If he could not honor your presence when he had it, he does not deserve access to it now, not because you are punishing him, but because you are protecting your own soul. And the deepest healing comes not from cutting the tie, but from no longer needing it to be something it never was. He is still with her, but his soul is tied to you. Let that truth be what it is. Not a promise, not a plan, just a quiet knowing. Then keep walking. He is still with her, but not all of him, because something in him never felt fully seen there. Not the way you saw him, not the way you felt him. With you, it was not just conversation, it was recognition, a kind of presence that disarmed him, a gaze that reached inside his defenses and found the boy still searching for meaning behind the mask of manhood. She loves the version he shows the world. You loved the one he tried to hide. That is what unsettled him. That is what created the emotional imprint he still cannot shake. Because being truly seen is the most intimate thing a man can experience, and it is also the most frightening. He thinks about you when he's tired of pretending, when his smile no longer holds, when he is alone in a room full of people who never knew the sound of his silence. Because you did. You heard it. That is why he still thinks of you when the sky turns gray, when music plays that reminds him of what he felt but never understood, when he realizes that his life has structure but no color, comfort but no pulse. He chose a path, one with fewer risks, fewer mirrors, fewer moments where he had to face his rawness. But what he did not realize is that in choosing safety, he also chose to forget how it feels to be fully alive. And aliveness was what you brought, not through chaos, but through truth. You did not demand love. You invited it. You called it out from the depths of his being and asked it to stand in the light. And love that is called never forgets where it came from. That is why he returns. In thought, that is why you feel him, even in your healing, even in your distance, even after all this time. Because soul ties are not based on how often you speak. They are built in the silent recognition of something ancient, something timeless. And when two people touch that space and then separate, their spirits remember. That is what he is remembering now. He is not reaching out for you, but he is reaching toward something that once felt like you, toward a moment when he could breathe without a mask, laugh without holding back, rest without performing. She sees his schedule. You saw his shadows, and his longing now is not for a new partner. It is for his own depth, the part of him that only you ever met. That part is still yours, not because you claim it, but because he never reclaimed it. So now, you are rebuilding your life, relearning your rhythm, reclaiming your softness. But sometimes, the echo of him pulls at you. You feel the wave before the message. You sense the unrest in his spirit before he finds words. And it shakes you, because you no longer want to carry someone who will not choose to stand beside you. And yet, the bond lingers. You wonder if he ever tells her your name, if she knows why he pauses during certain songs, if she senses that when he turns away at night, it is not just fatigue, it is memory. But that is no longer yours to question, because what you needed was not a bond that haunted. You needed a presence that stayed. And even though part of him never left, the part you needed most never arrived. So you stopped waiting, not because the love faded, but because the absence spoke louder. And in that silence, you remembered who you were before him, and who you must be after. You are not just the woman he once loved. You are the woman who loved him enough to let go. That is what sets you free. Not detachment, not forgetting, but honoring what was real without needing it to be rescued. He is still with her, and you are still healing. But the line between you has changed. It is no longer a lifeline. It is a lesson, and that lesson is sacred. It taught you that love is not proven in what is felt, but in what is chosen. He may feel you forever, but he did not choose you, and that difference changes everything. Still, you loved, fully, fiercely, without conditions, and that love changed both of you. Let that be enough. You are not unfinished. You are unfolding, and every time his soul drifts toward yours in the quiet, meet it not with desperation, but with peace. He remembers because something real happened, and what is real is never lost. But you, now, are learning to be whole without waiting for his return. Because even if his soul is tied to you, your soul is learning how to stand alone, free, steady, radiant, and that, too, is love. Before we go deeper, here's something that might shift how you see all of this. If you've ever felt like the one he couldn't forget, the Jung Method helps you understand soul ties, emotional bonds, and how to reclaim your power. The link is pinned in the first comment. You are no longer the woman who waits in silence, hoping that love will return in the form that once made you feel alive. You are now the woman who walks forward, even when her heart remembers everything. Because healing is not forgetting, it is remembering with clarity and choosing yourself anyway. He still carries you in a place he does not speak of. He moves through his life pretending the ache is just part of getting older, of settling down, of choosing what makes sense. But there is a part of him that stirs in the middle of the night, a part that wakes not from nightmares, but from a memory of aliveness, a moment when he felt truly mirrored, and it was with you. There is something sacred about being the woman who saw a man fully and did not run. You stayed, you listened, you loved him, not because he was perfect, but because he was real. And now, he is with someone who loves his patterns, not his process. Someone who accepts what is safe, and does not question what is buried. But you did. You touched the places in him that had been locked for years, and that kind of touch does not fade with time. It echoes, it follows. It disrupts the illusion of peace he has tried to build in your absence. Even if you never speak again, your presence still moves in his world like a shadow of truth. When he hears a certain song, when he drives alone and remembers the sound of your laugh, when he sees someone and for a split second forgets where he is because your image crashes through his memory. But this is not about him anymore. This is about you. Because the woman you are becoming now does not define herself by who remembers her, but by who she chooses to remember. And you are choosing to remember yourself, the way you gave, the way you loved, the way you trusted even. When everything inside you whispered that this might not last, you poured your heart not because you were naive, but because you were open. And that openness was your power, not your weakness. He may have mistaken your softness for something he could allay. He may have thought you would always be there in some form, and for a while you were. In energy, in memory, in the invisible strings that still tug at your chest when the day feels too quiet. But now, those strings no longer lead you back to him. They lead you inward, to the place where you gather yourself piece by piece, to the place where you are, not waiting to be chosen, but honoring the fact that you chose yourself when it mattered most. You are learning how to breathe, without the weight of wondering, how to move without looking over your shoulder, how to feel his energy without needing to hold it, because this is what healing does. It teaches you to carry the memory without carrying the pain, and though he may never say it, a part of him knows. He lost something rare, not just a woman, not just a lover, but a mirror that showed him who he could be if he had the courage to rise. He settled for less, not because you were too much, but because he was not yet ready for that kind of truth. And truth is heavy for those who have spent their lives avoiding it. So he stayed where it was light, where he could float above his own depths, where he could perform love without having to transform for it. But you are the kind of woman who asks for more, who invites depth, not drama, connection, not convenience. You are the kind of woman who sees through the layers and waits only for those who are willing to meet you there. He still feels you, but he cannot reach you, because now your energy is no longer an open field. It is a protected space, a temple with closed doors, a heart that beats for someone who is willing to stand inside the fire, not just warm themselves beside it. He may come back, or maybe he will not, but it no longer matters the way it once did, because what matters now is how you hold yourself, how you love yourself in the absence of the one who could not, how you walk with grace through the echoes of a bond that once defined you and now refines you. You are not bitter. You are awakened. You are not empty. You are clearing space. You are not waiting. You are choosing, and that choice is your healing, not because he does not still matter, but because you finally do. Asterisk, you gave him the kind of love that doesn't just warm the skin, it lingers in the bones. It becomes part of his emotional memory. He can try to move forward, try to love again, try to forget, but there are pieces of you stitched into his experience of love itself, not because you were possessive, but because you were present in ways no one else dared to be. You asked him to show up with all his truth, and for a brief moment, he did. And in that moment, something inside him woke up, something he had buried. That part of him, the one that knew how to feel, how to want deeply, how to connect with soul instead of performance. That part is still awake, and he doesn't know what to do with it. That is why he lingers in the background, why his name shows up when you least expect it, why your body still reacts before your mind catches up. Because energy remembers what logic tries to erase. But this time, you are not answering from the same place. You are no longer that version of yourself. You are no longer building altars to men who will not pray with you. You are no longer sacrificing your peace for the possibility of their awakening. You now understand that love does not ask you to shrink. It asks you to rise, and to rise even when the other cannot follow. And if he ever returns, if his voice ever breaks through the quiet, you will not meet him with longing. You will meet him with truth, not from pain, but from clarity, not to punish, but to protect what you've reclaimed. You can love someone deeply and still walk away. You can honor the bond and still choose yourself. You can feel the echo of him in your chest and still close the door with grace, because healing is not about never feeling again. It is about feeling it all and still choosing peace. And you, now, are choosing peace.